fellow humans, welcome to this week's episode of Video Ferox. I hope you're in the mood to get good and exterminated this week, because me and Brad, we're going to be watching Doctor Who and the Daleks. So grab your favorite companion, settle back in, let's roll the trailer.
Hello, darling.
Hello. It began just as you see here.
Do you know what you have just done? You have transferred us in time and space, and I hadn't even set the controls. Now I don't know where we are. We could be anywhere in the universe, and at any time.
Yes, this is how it began. The adventure that started by accident, taking us out of this time and place to a lost planet.
Who's there? Who's there?
Come with us into that strange new world. I cannot guarantee your safety, but I can promise you unimagined thrills.
You have invaded the world of the Daleks. Every move you make, we can see. Every sound you utter, we can hear.
An alarm bell. They know we've escaped. They're cutting through the door.
Come with us to the petrified forest. Meet the Thals, the blonde giants who have survived the monstrous rule of the Daleks.
We must get to the city.
They could have scanners here, anything. I'm going back.
No, you're not. We'll be killed. We'll never defeat the Daleks.
Remember, we are watching you. We can destroy you.
It's a trap! Go back! Run!
These are the people trapped by the Daleks. Doctor Who, the brilliant science professor. The young man who triggered off this strange journey. The professor's frightened granddaughter. And the youngster who inherited her grandfather's adventurous spirit. Doctor Who and the Daleks. Now you can see them in color on the big screen, closer than ever before. So close, you can feel their fire. So thrilling, you must be there.
Barbra, look behind you! Stop the countdown! The bomb will destroy the planet!
We are coming back to see you. We expect you to be here to meet us.
Alrighty, and that was the trailer to Doctor Who and the Daleks from 1965, starring Peter Cushing and not William Hartnell. Brad, did you like Doctor Who and the Daleks?
I did. It's a fun movie. Admittedly, there are a few things about it, but generally it's a good movie. And if you were taking it on the approach of, I've never seen anything Doctor Who before, it would be perfectly acceptable. What ruins it for this movie is I know far too much about Doctor Who, and you know even more than I do. So it's like,
The thing is, I think this movie takes unfair heat from the fans. No, it's not canon. No, it's not related at all to anything that will come after, so no regeneration, no Gallifrey, none of that. But I think taking in isolation, I think on its own, it's fine. It's fun, it's bright, it's colorful, it's well put together, it looks gorgeous in widescreen. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy this thing, despite being a nerd.
I mean, every single thing that's about this movie, I mean, the story is good, the production value is good, the acting is good, the effects are good, everything is worthwhile about this film. It's just when you take it out of isolation, it kind of falls on its face. But only if you look at it just as a complete standalone and don't really consider anything else that Peter Cushing has done, you're like, wow, this is a fine film.
It's a fun romp. It really is. And I'm entertained, and that's all I need from a movie.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
All right, well, why don't we get on to the spoilers and tell you all about the Daleks. So I'm going to try and not do the compare and contrast to original series to the movie, but I gotta talk about the opening credits here, because the opening credits for the original 63 show are so goddamn iconic, and the music is so goddamn iconic. And even if you take the Dalek movie in isolation, I think the opening credits fall flat, even compared to like the 65 Piers. It's just not very interesting.
That's one thing that didn't resonate very well with me, was the music. The music was generally not apparent to me, and that's problem number one. Problem number two is the opening credits sequence, which I agree, it left me feeling a little flat. And then there was one sequence where they've got the Daleks and they're in their city, and there's freaking music playing in the background. It's like something you'd expect on an elevator. And I'm like, what the hell is that?
The Dalek aesthetic in this movie is a little weird, but we'll get into that in a second. Okay, so for those of you who have no idea what the fuck we're talking about, so Doctor Who is played by Peter Cushing, and he's not a Time Lord, he's not a dude from Gallifrey, he's just an English scientist who invented TARDIS. No the in front of it, it's just TARDIS. And he and his granddaughter. Granddaughters, yes, because there's two granddaughters. We've got little Susan, who is about 10 or so. And Susan, who she managed to escape the curse of child actors. She's actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, she's very engaging, and she's one of the more useful characters in the movie, even more so than Doctor Who himself.
And then you have Barbra Who, and she is probably about 20, 25-ish or so.
Her position as Doctor Who's older granddaughter it's that aspect of it is concrete, but there's something a little off in the chemistry between the two of them, or the chemistry she has with her kid sister. I mean, she's a fine character, and I didn't find any real flaws with her.
Oh, I did, but I'll get to that in a second.
But on the other hand, there seems something a little off, and I think it would have been strengthened by having maybe a different actress, or maybe some better writing that would strengthen the character's role.
The problem that I had with this Barbara was that she had no agency and she had no strength. And I'm not even comparing her to the Jacqueline Hill Barbara from the series. I'm just saying, just on her own, she is this, I keep going back to this metaphor, this room temperature glass of tap water. She does a role, she says lines, and has absolutely nothing to do in the story at all.
It's like she's there as a hook to bring Ian in, and because they're a couple, and that's it. And even as a couple goes, they really don't seem, the chemistry between them is just off. They don't feel like a couple to me.
And then we, of course, got Ian Chesterton, who is not a teacher as far as I know. Actually, they don't get into any background of any of the characters. So, he could be a teacher. This Barbara could be a teacher. We don't know. But so Ian, I guess my issue with him, and he settles down when the movie gets going, but that first initial 15 or 20 minutes or so, he does a lot of pratfalls and a lot of goofing and a lot of, I don't know if this is quite working or not.
They do the classic, it's bigger on the inside than the outside gag. And that, of course, works, because that gag never gets old. You know, the bits where he's bumping into things or stumbling over things, and he does it a lot, it's a little distracting.
There was one bit that I did like, one bit of business, where they were trying to get into the Dalek city, and here they are, they've got the 3 doors, and Doctor Who and Susan Who, they go off this way, and Barbara Who, she goes off that way. And so here's Ian trying to get through the center door, and it's like, you know, an automated door at the supermarket, so you walk up to it, and in theory should open, and the other 2 do. And he walks up to it and right into it, and I'm like, yeah, what the hell? And he, dejected, goes and sits down on this weird sculpture thing, and the door opens as second he sits down. Oh, he gets up, goes, closes his face. Sits, open, goes, closes.
I also enjoyed it, and I thought it was quite clever, him trying various ways of making the door be open so he could get through, like putting his hand on it and stretching his arm out and getting as close to the door as possible and lift, pow, ow.
And then, of course, one of the times that he goes back to try for the door, we run into the wobbly set problem that Doctor Who is infamous for the last 50 years, where, you know, he's running, he charges to the door, and he bumps into it because it just closed in his face, and you could totally see the set go boing. Like, oh, Doctor Who, never change. So Ian shows up to dinner one night, and he's going to take Barbara out on a date. And while she's off getting ready, Doctor Who says, oh, well, hey, let me show you my latest invention, TARDIS. And he goes back into the backyard, and there's this police box. And he's like, you invented a police box?
There's absolutely no explanation as to why it happens to be a police box.
And so he goes in, he starts showing him around, and look at all these things, and Barbara comes in and is like, oh, here you are, I knew you were going to be in the TARDIS. And she embraces him, and she bumps up against the go lever to fly away into time and space. And then Ian takes heat for getting bumped up against the lever. It's like, Doctor Who comes over, it's like, son, you've just sent us off to nowhere. I haven't set the controls yet. It's like, motherfucker, he didn't do it. It was her. It was, you throw heat at your granddaughter.
Like I said, there are minor little things, and that's one of them.
And so they wind up on Skaro, although they don't actually identify it as a Skaro. It's just a dead planet that was full of this radioactive waste, and they catch radiation poisoning because they're wandering around this contaminated area. And they find the Dalek city. Oh no, the Daleks come rolling out and try and capture them, and they run up and down corridors for the next hour and a half or so. And then the Daleks get defeated. The end.
There's some other little plot points that involve a completely different alien race, but yeah, they're not Daleks, so, you know, we don't pay as much attention to them.
They have this weird glam rock look, almost like they're kind of fugitives from a David Bowie music video.
Every single one of them has eye makeup, and if they're not in a gold wig, they're in a silver wig. And most of them are in gold wigs. And
I suppose it works fine enough. I mean, they look alien enough, I guess.
The fact that they were so cookie cutter, I mean, that just didn't feel right to me.
Even worse, above and beyond the cookie cutter look, they were really kind of, there was no character to any of them. There was the guy who tried to kill himself when they were trying to jump across the chasm. That was the only character that we got out of any of the Thals. They were all very...
Well, there were the 2 leaders. Those 3 are the only ones that you get any character out of. And it's really not all that well exercised.
What are you going to go see the movie for? You're going to go see some Daleks exterminate the fuck out of a whole bunch of people. So, I guess not building up the Thals because you don't really need to, because they're not the showpiece of the movie. Okay, I guess it works, but it doesn't work at all.
No, they really could have taken more effort with them to make them more interesting. Even if you're just doing humans and makeup, could have, like, gotten some diversity in them.
I could understand not having the elderly with you and not having the young with you, because it was implied that the Thals came from a great distance away and they crossed great expanses of wasteland to get here. as a last gambit because, hey, we need food and the Daleks have food.
Well, that makes sense.
So, yeah, but I mean, that's purely reading between the lines.
All of the men looked identical to each other, except for the one guy with the silver hair, and all of the women looked identical.
I love the art design of this movie. The set that they have for the Dead Planet Wastelands looks gorgeous, and they have that strong green and red Argento lighting. And it just goes on, the depth of field just goes on and on and on, and it looks really good.
Well, also the fact that they made virtually all of the plant life, such as it was, silver and gray. It looks great. I mean, the way that everything just sort of feels like there's a vast space when it's actually just a fairly small set.
Once the Thals and the Doctor and the companions are going to go assault the Dalek City for the last time, they're climbing up this kind of papier-mâché rough rock face thing, and all of a sudden the Daleks come rolling out and the rock face just splits apart and slides open. So that must have been a great deal of work to get for this one maybe 10-second shot. So it's a really, really impressive set.
And the weird little bits of decor that are in the city. There's all sorts of interesting little wall hangings, and there's the plastic screens, and there's the little cameras that swivel slightly, and
well, the sculpture that Ian was trying to use to get into the third door. I mean, just this weird stuff all over the place. And okay, lava lamps.
Yeah, lava lamps.
Now, that's 100% on brand for Doctor Who. I've got downstairs a Dalek time controller, basically one of the plasma balls when you touch them, the electricity goes all over on the side. And they used that in 89. So repurposing lava lamps when they weren't the big thing, when they weren't, oh my God, everybody knows a lava lamp. They're just weird alien aesthetic stuff. So I'm willing to forgive that.
The Dalek control room was interesting. They have this one section that's part of the main console, and it's this octagonal in cross-section panel that rotates so that the Daleks have different sets of controls whenever they rotate a face of this thing. And it's like, that is actually pretty cool. I liked that.
Later on, when they're trying to get into the Dalek City, when they're trying to come around from the back, and they're climbing up this mountain, and the matte painting is just gorgeous. I mean, you can clearly tell it's kind of that 1960s matte painting technology, so you can kind of tell it's a matte painting, but it looks amazing.
One thing that was particularly neat about that painting is at an earlier sequence in the plot, they're walking through a swamp, and lo and behold, you can see the swamp down there at the base of the mountain.
And that earlier shot, they've got in the sky in the background on the cyclorama, they've got this giant moon, Skaro's giant moon. And that shot looks gorgeous. I mean, this movie is really, really well put together. What did you think of the Dalek design themselves?
Oh, it was fine. Oftentimes when you see Daleks, they're all the same color scheme. But this one, it's like, it was very clear who was in charge, who the second person was, and it worked out really well.
I've always liked the big, bright, colorful look of the Daleks, the big bumpers they have for the bottom of the skirts, which is probably why I was more forgiving of the Paradigm Daleks when they showed up, when they got the redesign and the fans were like, oh, what the hell is this? They look terrible. Aside from the hunchback that the Paradigm Daleks have, I thought the aesthetic looks really like the movie Daleks. And so I kind of jibed with both sets.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of different Dalek designs over the years, and this one is a very classic look. I mean, it is different than any other ones I remember seeing in the series, but it works really well.
So let's talk about Peter Cushing. Did you like him doing the Doctor Who role?
I've seen him perform better in several other things, but I felt that playing a sort of avuncular, intellectual, kind of bumbling, absent-minded type, it worked well. It it actually made sense that you've got this eccentric who is creating cross-dimensional technology in his backyard. It worked well. One early scene that was funny was you get the very first introduction to the characters, and little Susan is reading a huge physics textbook, and Barbara is reading another science-related book, and then you cut to Doctor Who, and he's reading the comics. I thought that was quite funny.
He does have all the kind of eccentricities that the Doctor should have. He's got that kind of absent-mindedness. He's got that kind of curmudgeonly when appropriate. He also has, like, warmth. He doesn't have that otherworldliness that Hartnell brought to the role. He doesn't have that kind of sinister. He doesn't have that. He really has that warm, grandfatherly feel to him. It's a very different role for what Cushing does.
Oh, yeah. Seeing Cushing play a hero is all well and good. I mean, he's Dr. Van Helsing in several things, and he does a great job. But Van Helsing as a hero is different than Cushing's Doctor Who as a hero, because Van Helsing just goes right in there, takes charge of everything, and is like, we're going to do this, and out the door he goes, raring for action with stakes in one hand and a hammer in the other. And this guy isn't that sort of hero. He's a lot more like what you'd expect a retired academic to be like. And it works.
The one thing that I wish that he had done was he doesn't really make the role his own. He's not completely a carbon copy of Hartnell, but he definitely is playing to the Hartnell tropes. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could have seen him do something all on his own. It's like, okay, I'm going to play Doctor Who the way I want to play Doctor Who.
Well, I think part of the issue is that Cushing wouldn't have seen any other versions of Doctor Who other than Hartnell up to this point, given the time period of when the movie came out.
Yeah, true, because Hartnell didn't leave the role until 68 or 69, I think.
So Cushing really doesn't have any room to play with the role because he doesn't know that it can be played with.
One of the other things that didn't thrill me with the movie was the art design of the interior of the TARDIS. And that doesn't essentially mean that I'm jonesing for the roundels and the mushroom-shaped console. Yes, that's iconic, but even taken in isolation, I think the control room here doesn't really work. It's too slapdash. I mean, there's just wires everywhere. It's this kind of... Okay, it's supposed to be a DIY, kit-bashed TARDIS, sure, but it just doesn't aesthetically work for me.
It feels like the Doctor is taking this on its completely virgin alpha run and hasn't bothered to put up the drywall.
Well, even Doctor Who says, as he's about to show TARDIS to Ian, it's like, hey, here's the last component. I finally got it in. And my project is now complete. So it's still very much in the prototype stage. So, okay, I guess I can blame the wires and the DIY look, but I still don't like the aesthetic.
One thing I didn't like was whenever TARDIS dematerialized and transited, it didn't do anything. There were no external shots of it fading away. There were no internal noises that let you know that it was transiting. I mean, of course, as a longtime fan, we all know the woof-woo noise.
The warp. Well, and the thing is, even in the early days of the TV show, they were still a little... Okay, are we using the sound or are we not using the sound? Because there's a couple of times where the TARDIS just arrives and there's no warp. Okay, I can give them not having that sound, but they really did need some sort of kind of theremin as it took off.
Yeah, or an external shot of the TARDIS fading away or fading into existence on Skaro. You know, it's like these are things that would have let you know that the ship is doing what it's supposed to do, instead of just, you know, having Ian go to the door and go, what the hell? You know, where'd the backyard go?
You know, say what you will about the original console design, the motion of the Time Rudder going up and down, showing that the ship's in flight, is a very strong visual cue that, hey, something's happening. So it really needed a up and down motion thing.
Or something.
Yeah.
Anything. Sound effect, you know, gear going in the background, who the hell knows? But you're totally right. It definitely needed that.
So, Brad, your final thoughts in, please?
What up with the music in the Dalek City later on? That was just so jarring and weird. It's like, what? Why are they listening to this?
All right, I guess we're just going to put this one to bed.
I think so.
All right, I think so. So we'll catch you next week.
Fade out.
Fade out to cliffhanger. I'm not getting the toilet plunger to menace you with it.
Come one, come all to our giant flea market, where you'll find bargains galore. Be a buyer, seller, or swapper, or just come for the fun of it. You'll find antiques, hard-to-find merchandise, things you've never dreamed of owning. Anyone with a garage or closet full of goodies can become a weekend moneymaker. For the time of your life, bring the whole family for all the fun at our giant flea market. Our refreshment stand will be open for your convenience.
And so the Doctor flies off into time and space, never to be seen again. The Daleks, on the other hand, they'll be back next week for a little bit of revenge, because me and Brad, we're going to be watching the Dalek Invasion of Earth, 2150 AD. So come back and join us for that if you can get your time-space coordinates set correctly. If your email works from the future, please drop us an email, thevideonastyproject@gmail.com. And until next week, I want you to stay evil.
Grandfather, I told you to watch the cakes. Now you've burnt them.
Oh, yes, the cakes. The cakes!